This is Hemant.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. Please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast. Happy New Year to all of you. And you should celebrate the new year by subscribing and supporting the show, as is tradition, I assume. How was your new year? Did you have all the parties?
Oh my God, it was crazy. My husband and I split a bottle of wine and some of a bottle of champagne. It was nuts. We did make it to midnight. Did you make it to midnight?
I did. I can't speak for everyone else, but we did a bunch of jigsaw puzzles and split non-alcoholic pina coladas. So that's what happens when you have 3-year-olds in the house.
So your youngest one's 3 already?
I assume. I don't know. That's what I've heard.
We just stayed in. We did not. I think we watched a movie last night. Unclear what it was. I don't remember. Man,
Disney Plus is a lifesaver. That's not a commercial. They're not a sponsor. That's me saying we've watched that so many times.
Yeah.
So many movies.
Can I tell you a dumb story?
Not the new ones, but the ones from like the 40s, like the Cinderella Snow White stuff. I'm like, I don't know why that's the thing that captivates them, but all right.
Big fans of Song of the South, are they?
Right, exactly.
I love to, at night after Mikey goes to bed, I'll take an edible and watch a bad movie, and I find it extraordinarily relaxing. I didn't take one before I recorded this. I just haven't spoken. So I watched a bunch of stuff that I was like, actually, I kind of enjoy this, or I'm going to watch this again with friends. I decided to watch Greatest Showman because it felt so far up my alley. Hugh Jackman, Barnum Bailey. I didn't see it at first. I love a musical. Didn't see it at first because P.T. Barnum was a fucking monster, and I didn't feel like I needed to sort of support his sort of rebranding, as it were. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I want colors. I want dancing. I want wigs. All of this is going to be mine when I see The Greatest Showman. I got 40 minutes into that thing and tapped the fuck out. I don't know why, but it was so aggressively bad in a way I wasn't emotionally prepared for. I want to watch it again with friends. It just wasn't a suit. I watch not always bad movies. I'll watch
a bad movie you want to discuss with people. Right,
exactly. A lot of time, I'll just watch things that are just engrossing, kind of.
Yeah.
This did not do that. That was last night. I don't know why I told that story. I think we watched Horse Girl last night or something else. I'm still into my Dream Logic kind of movies. But yeah, so I went to Hemant's house for the first time, and by that I mean I stood at his front door, dropped off a bottle of wine, and picked up some cards. You have a lovely little neighborhood.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's fun to walk when it's not cold.
Yeah, and it's right by a restaurant I really like.
There you go.
I will strong arm you into going with me in the after times.
That sounds good. Let's start this one with this story because it kind of made me laugh, and then it made me sad, as do all stories. There's a conservative publication called the Washington Times where they're trying to. It's one of those publications that it's not Breitbart. They try to confuse you by making it sound legit.
Yeah.
And every now and then they'll get a scoop that's legitimate. Mm-hmm. They're the ones who had Jerry Falwell Jr. saying something like, there are stories about me that are not true, that are coming out soon. And we're like, why are you telling the Washington Times that it's all lies? It's what is about to come out? What are you trying to get ahead of? Then the next day, the pool boy spoke out in a Reuters article. It's okay, every now and then they'll publish stuff like that. So anyway, they have a writer, Cheryl Chumley is her name. She's written a lot of typical right-wing pieces, anti-atheist type of pieces. She said Christians who oppose Christian nationalism are basically being unchristian. Mm-hmm. She has said we should tear down satanic monuments, from the Satanic Temple.
Sure.
And those monuments don't exist. They're hypothetical. I don't know what you want to tear down. But the one that got me laughing/crying was she's trashing Fauci. And basically, here's the idea. There was an article that came out this week that Senator Marco Rubio wrote that basically says Anthony Fauci lied to the American people. And what he's best case, like if I give him the benefit of the doubt, what is he trying to say? Fauci was trying to explain what percentage of Americans need to get immunized in order for herd immunity to kick in and the virus can't really spread as much. And I think he said the number, I'm paraphrasing here, the number was like 70% of Americans need to get immunized. That is a doable number. We can do that. In his head, I think he actually knew the number was higher. It needs to be more like 80 or 90. But if we think it's 90%, when the percentage of people who say they're going to take the vaccine is like 50, it's not helping because it just seems insurmountable. So he was hoping, you know what, I think it's going to go up, the number of people willing to take the vaccine. If people get it and we're safer, the anti-vaxxers will kind of disappear. So he kind of like said 70. And then later on, when he felt more comfortable giving a higher number, he gave a higher number. Did that impact American policy on any of this? No. This is all about communication and rhetoric. And look, if you want to criticize him for that, criticize him for that. But here's what Chumley says in her article. She says he lied. And he should, like, how dare someone in the government lie? And then not only does she ignore all the lies coming from Trump and the administration, here's what she says about why would Anthony Fauci lie to us. She writes, well, more than all these other reasons she gives, he's a humanist, meaning he takes his moral compass from his own mind. He has little to no concern with the stuff of higher authority, the constraints that come from fears of heavenly accountability. She goes on to say, he's unelected. He's largely unaccountable to the people. He's atheist, which speaks volumes about his character, his moral compass, and his understanding of American exceptionalism and basic founding and constitutional principles. So basically, he's lying because he's an atheist and nothing holds him back, which we'll get to his beliefs in a second. But also, this administration is surrounded by conservative Christians, and they've spent 4 years lying about stupid everything.
Right.
So he ignores all of that, first of all. In terms of what does Fauci believe, because he did grow up Catholic and he went to like Catholic schools.
He said he had a Jesuit education that helped. No, I don't need a pop-up ad, you asshole. A Jesuit education that helped develop, quote, the principles that I run my life by.
Sure. And he said in a 2015 interview, before he kind of went, he said in a 2015 interview that he's no longer Catholic. That's not how he describes himself. He said,
baby.
I know. He said he's a lowercase h humanist. He said, I have faith in the goodness of mankind. Didn't talk about atheism, didn't talk about God or anything. Just saying like, oh yeah, I'm really not Catholic. That's not really who I am anymore. Yeah, I'd call myself a humanist. That's kind of all she's working off of to say, see, no moral compass.
Busted.
Gallup just did a poll this week. They do it every year. Who's the most admired men and women in America? And it was news this year because Donald Trump was number one on the list with like under 20% of the vote. And it's always been one of these popularity contests more than anything. Like, who's the most famous person you could think of? That's probably who's going to be most admired. It was Obama for many years. It was also Obama for the past few years. And now it's Trump, mostly because everyone else split the votes.
Right.
So if you think 40% of Republicans like Trump, well, about half of them thought they admire him too, or something like that. So take that survey as you will. Fauci was like 3 or 4 on the list. So saying like, look, even on a popularity contest, he's doing all right more than most people. But one thing I want to point out, American Atheist President Nick Fish tweeted this out, and I thought it's worth mentioning. Try to imagine the outcry if someone on the New York Times opinion page wrote a foaming at the mouth diatribe about how you couldn't trust someone because they were Jewish or Catholic or Baptist. But because Fauci is a humanist, it's fair game for the Washington Times, which I think is a good point to bring up. Like, don't let them get away with this slander of saying, well, he says he's a humanist, therefore he's immoral and a liar. Like, it's not just wrong. It's just not an okay thing to say. It's not okay to stereotype any group that way, unless they're fill in the blank with your choice right there. But you know what I mean? Like, that's the point.
It is frustrating, and it's just a really obvious double standard that it barely feels worth pointing out because we're all so aware of it.
Yeah. And she didn't mention any real substance, I should say, to use against him. So she's just like, well, he tried to massage a message that he was trying to get out there. Like, that's her example of the worst liar, immoral ever person. By the way, I want to point out, Fauci's boss is Dr. Francis Collins, the head of the National Institutes of Health, who is famously evangelical Christian. He has no problem with Fauci. You would think that would carry some weight with the evangelical crowd. Apparently not.
Oh my God. Like, what is about to happen, and we're already witnessing it somewhat, is a lot of people are going to like go pretty fucking blank about these past 4 years and like pretend they have tabula rasa to start again with whatever. And like, if this is the kind of shit they're going to sling around, he's not my religion, so he's bad at science.
Yeah.
I don't know how long they're going to be able to stick with that, if I'm being honest. That does not feel like a sustainable disagreement with how the government runs in an increasingly multicultural and multi-religious and non-religious country. It's
the Washington Times. They're not trying to convince anyone other than their own readers.
Yeah, I mean, it is the Washington Times. Yes, your aunt posted it thinking that it was the Washington Post, so it was credible. Just send her the link, okay?
Right. Let's talk about New Year's Eve parties. Sean Feucht, our super Christian, super spreader preacher, goes around the country holding these concerts. So he was planning a 2-day extravaganza in Los Angeles, not just in Los Angeles, but where 2 giant communities of homeless people live, Skid Row of Los Angeles, as they put it. He wanted to go there to host a concert. And like, the question is there a legal justification to turn him away? I'm not sure that there is, if you call it a protest or you call it a prayer service or whatever. So here's what I found interesting, because this is what he's been doing everywhere. He goes into cities, he holds a concert, everyone comes, they don't wear masks, they don't distance. These are all super spreader events. And he's gone before you can really do any contact tracing or anything. So he was going to go to Los Angeles and do all this stuff. But this is how some people fought back for once, where they're like, we have enough notification that he's coming to Los Angeles. They had a month of knowing he was going to try to do this. Do you remember when Westboro Baptist Church would go to soldiers' funerals and all of that and hold up their signs and basically hijack a funeral to spread their own message? Well, every now and then you would see like a group of like a motorcycle gang of sorts say, you know what, we're fighting back. We're going to form a barrier around the funeral because they can't get past us. We're going to let you have your service in honor of whoever just passed. And we're going to keep out the bad people. And it always made for interesting news stories. Well, this time there was a car caravan that was created to get in the way of the protest. How successful was it? I don't know, but they called it the Resistance Blockade Against Biological Warfare. And there was like a Christian community participated in this. A local community action network participated in this, forming a circle of cars around the event so that people can't crowd around and hurt the homeless community, which I love as a matter of protest. It's like, well, if you can gather, so can we. We're doing it safely. You're not. Right. At the very least, it disrupted whatever plans he was trying to do. I haven't seen a lot of whether he was able to get anything done, but it at least got in the way of it, which is important. And now the question is what he's going to do now. They have another one of those like Stop the Steal events next week in Washington, D.C. I don't know if he's part of that one. But I am kind of curious how long he's going to keep up these super spreader concerts now that Trump is leaving, now that the vaccine is out.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what the future looks like for Trumpers and for people of that ilk who are so sure that the government is just out to get them personally or whatever. I don't know. I mean, I think we're going to be hearing about this. Oh my God, this election for the rest, like literally the rest of our lives. I think we can all prepare for that.
Well, yeah, Trumpism is going to affect all the future elections as well. And depending on how the Georgia ones go, I'm sure he'll find a way to try to get in the way of that if it doesn't go the way the Trump people want it to go.
Yeah, it's going to be A big fucking mess.
Here's some happier news.
Yay.
From Liberty University, where happy news doesn't usually emanate, 400 students who are current students at Liberty or alums of Liberty have signed a petition, an open petition, where they're asking for Liberty University, now without Jerry Falwell Jr., to get rid of the Falkirk Center, which is the right-wing, quote-unquote, think tank that he set up last year. Falwell and Charlie Kirk, they're both conservatives. They're both Trump cultists. They set it up last year saying this is a think tank. And really all they've done is post, like, own the lib type memes online.
I could feel those, too. I could tell when they put those up. It really hurt me.
Like, usually if there's a think tank, they're putting out white papers, they're making policy arguments, they're pushing for their positions and making academic arguments for it.
The position being owning the libs.
Yeah, the Falkirk Center hasn't done anything other than provide a vehicle. Politico posted about this like a week or two ago. It's basically allowed them to funnel money into ads for Republican candidates.
Oh, that's convenient for them.
Through Liberty University. And the students, here's what I found interesting, because when Falwell was around, very few students, relatively speaking, would push back against the schools, how they function. Here's what the petition says. The Falkirk Center constantly preaches the message that the church needs to defend Donald Trump at all costs and rescue Western civilization. And they say that's wrong because associating any politician or political movement with Christianity bastardizes the gospel of Jesus Christ. And they also said we're tarnished by an association with the center that is trying to undo Liberty's mission. Basically saying we're here because we want to go to a Christian college, not a Republican breeding ground.
Sure.
And if those overlap, so be it. But like the think tank does not pretend to have any academic ties.
Are there any famously liberal Christian universities? And I'm not talking like DePaul or Loyola, which are technically Catholic universities, but not necessarily so in practice.
I believe there are a number of Christian schools that do not push a Republican agenda and are
I guess not liberal, but centrist. Not horrible.
There are schools where liberal groups, I'm trying to think of specific names. Like, I know I've heard of them. That's why I don't have specifics, but like, they don't have they don't have policies that are explicitly Republican. Like at Liberty, they censor the newspaper when Falwell was around. You can't push.
Just like Jesus did.
Yes. You can't publish articles that are even not subjective. These are objective articles about things that are going on that might speak well of progressive Christians. No, that was banned. They forget the teaching for a second, but like the one thing I don't get about this petition is they're like the Falkirk Center is tarnishing our school's reputation. Like the school's reputation wasn't that good, no matter what you think.
You think your school's reputation was? I mean, we only talk shit about them on this program. Maybe they have like a really dynamite ladies swimming team.
They actually have first of all, they have a dynamic like debate mock trial team.
Oh, do they?
They really do. And Falwell was instrumental in trying to get them really good athletically, knowing that like, hey, for some schools, if you have a good sports team, it actually draws in donors and money and students who are drawn to it.
So fucking broken.
Yeah. So Falwell, they have a NCAA basketball team that made it to like, they were in March Madness. They won games in March Madness for a couple of years. Their football team just had an upset last week. Like, they have teams, but what happened this year as Falwell scandals kept happening is a lot of their star athletic students who came there because you get a scholarship and you get to play the sport that you want to go to. And it's like, oh, it's a Christian school, whatever. I'm Christian, so what? They didn't necessarily realize what type of school they were going to. And then they're like, oh shit, what is Falwell? What is he saying? A number of black students have left the school saying like, we're not putting up with this racist stuff. And so like Falwell's athletic attempt to break the mold, that's falling apart too. Too bad for them. Whatever. But yeah, the idea that Liberty had a reputation outside of the Falkirk Center is laughable. But hey, we always say we need students and professors at the school to say this stuff, not us. Right. And here they are saying that stuff. So I give them credit for doing that.
Sure.
I mean, I know there are some people that are like, they shouldn't go there at all. They should leave the school. And I don't think it's that easy. I don't know who's paying for their school. If their parents are paying, they don't necessarily have a choice. Sometimes with a lot of these schools, the kids are like, I'm going to get my education and then I'll pursue my own path that is very far from Liberty standards.
Right.
Let me get like the degree and then I'll deal with the repercussions. So like, I find it hard to say of the students and maybe even the professors, like just leave. It's not that easy. It's like saying you don't like your job? Well, quit.
Or you don't like America? Get out.
Yeah, right.
Like, they won't let me in anywhere else, sir.
Yeah. New Zealand wants nothing to do with us right now. So speaking of people calling out their own house, here's an interesting one from the Catholic Church. George Botzing, who is the head of the Germans Bishop Conference, not a nobody, a high-ranking German Catholic leader, said this week that he wants the church to basically update its own rules on a lot of hot-button issues. So, for example, the Catechism of the Catholic Church says homosexual acts, not being gay, but acting on it, is intrinsically immoral and contrary to the natural law. It says homosexual tendencies are objectively disordered. They also don't, even the Pope Francis said this, he rejects the very idea that you can be transgender. So Batzing, this is old. This has been around forever. Yeah, they don't exist. Batzing this week.
Did they write a lot about trans people when they were writing this shit down?
Jesus very explicitly said, nope.
Cool.
Yes, he was. Cool. Him and J.K. Rowling, and that's it. And so Batzing said this week that these arguments, he said basically the church needs to modernize their stance on all that stuff. Not only that, he said we should ordain women and let them become deacons and priests, because that would open the door to a new generation of Catholic leaders. He said, I'm quoting here, I must honestly say that I am aware that these arguments are becoming less and less convincing to keep the catechism as is, and that there are well-developed arguments in theology in favor of opening up the sacramental ministry to women as well. And now, how does he think the church should change its position on LGBTQ issues? He did not specify.
Okay.
He just said, we need to do better on it because what we have right now is not helping.
Not working. Yeah.
It's not working. And he's arguing that there are good theological arguments for why we shouldn't say the things we are currently saying. Now,
and is he doing this out of concern of the well-being of our LGBTQ friends and family members, or is he doing it because attendance in the Catholic Church is down?
Yeah, I would argue it's probably the latter. I mean, this is a constant concern for the church, not even attendance so much, but they're having a hard time finding priests because, guess what? Not every person wants to sign up for forced celibacy and all that. But homophobia. But there are a lot of gay guys who are out and want to be in relationships and want to be married. I'm sorry. Let me go back for a second. There are a lot of men who are straight and want to have their families who want to be priests. They cannot. There are a lot of gay men who want to be priests, but they also want to have relationships too. They cannot. There are tons of women who want to do it. They cannot. So the church is blocking out all these people.
Yeah, essentially the Catholic Church is just saying, it's us or nothing else. You get to have a family, do whatever you want, or you be a Catholic priest. You do not get to do both things.
I've written about this. We've talked about him on Fox News for many years. There was a guy, Jonathan Morris, who was their resident Catholic, who always came on with his collar and spoke about whatever cultural issue or political issue they wanted. And a year or two ago, he basically announced, I'm leaving the church because I fell in love and I want to get married and have a family. And he did. And I think he has a baby now. And all right, I don't like anything the guy said, but good for him.
That sounds like a romance novel I've read.
Right? He left Fox News after that too, because he's no longer the Catholic priest. He's just like a right-wing bigot who wants a family. So all right, but like he left.
He wants to breed more bigots.
Yeah, and also like I think there was an issue in Brazil where they have like no priests. But they could if you allow married guys to do it, and they were asking the Pope to make an exception to the rule. And so like every now and then they'll be like, well, it's more important to bend our rules or break them entirely because there's a bigger issue here. We can't have a church unless we have leaders of the church. And so here in this case, this guy who is not a nobody is saying, yeah, we should change what we do, especially with women and also with LGBT issues somehow. It won't happen. It's not going to happen overnight, but nothing will change unless like one of two things happen. The people who are leaders in the church speak out against it, which is what this guy is doing. So good for him. Or people who are Catholics and practicing Catholics and who give the church money and prop it up say, you know what, we're walking out. And I mean, I want people to do that too.
I don't think
it's a harder sell. You're seeing you're seeing some people leaving the Catholic Church, but not enough to make them say, all right, fine, we'll change the way we act or do things. So this is not nothing. I don't want to like pretend what he says just because we know it won't have any direct impact anytime soon. Mm-hmm. I don't want to give him no credit. Because, like, I want people speaking out. It would help if he was a little more specific about what they needed to do instead of saying, it's not great. Like, okay, tell us what you want.
Yeah. I don't know. I know I bring this up a lot, but, like, you know, when the Catholic Church went away from Latin back in...
Vatican II in the 70s?
Yeah. I think it was the 70s. That sounds right. I mean, obviously there isn't no chance that they change their mind on something like this. It's just a question of like, why, what is their motivation? If their motivation is to boost their membership, this feels like a solid way to do it. If they're genuinely running out of people who want to be priests, that feels like a pretty strong emergency, you know?
I mean, if enough people start leaving Catholicism, they'll have to make some sort of change. It's happened in the past. So yeah, it's not out of the question, but even if this Pope of all popes isn't really making any headway on these changes, like it's hard to imagine another Benedict type of Pope is going to do it anytime soon.
Like not to pin too many badges onto him, but like obviously our current Pope is heads and shoulders more liberal than most people who came before him, but he is not. I doubt he's going to touch that. And I don't know who we foresee in the future of somehow like suddenly being like this really progressive person who's also in the Catholic Church at a high, you know, a cardinal.
Right. And that's, far cry. It's not going to happen anytime soon. So, but whatever. Good. More people need to speak out. More people in his position need to. This is a COVID story that I felt bad about laughing. This is going back to I feel bad that I laugh at this stuff because I shouldn't be. I know it makes me a bad person, and yet.
Well, this isn't the reason you're a bad person. You're a bad person.
No, that's exactly right. Martha's Vineyard, very posh island area where a lot of rich people, politicians go have their summer homes off of Massachusetts.
It's like where rich white people hang out. Yes. I've never met them.
Yes. And so there was a COVID outbreak there. And a local newspaper that covers Martha's Vineyard wrote about this. And part of it was because it happened, the COVID cluster broke out of a Bible study that takes place on the island. And it turns out one of the guys who contributes to the newspaper is a member of the Bible study. So they had an in. And so that was interesting. And so here's what they said.
Study guys, I guess.
Hey, whatever works. So the article says that according to the contributor, his name is Jim Osborne, this guy who goes to the Bible study and contributes to the Martha's Vineyard Times and was in the study group. He said a lot of us, the guy who runs the Bible study didn't wear a mask. They did it outdoors and they did it like with some distancing outdoors. So they figured we're fine. But he said, I'm reading from the article, Reverend Dan Davey never wore a mask, Osborne said. He sort of gave us the impression that because it was a Bible study, we were under God's protection during the Bible study.
And that didn't work, you're saying?
Didn't work. And I guess we all made that same false assumption. I should say.
Like, genuinely, what fucking idiots. I'm so sorry. Like, normally this is not a thing. I don't like to dog on people just for being religious until they start doing shit that affects others. But you fucking morons, you thought God was going to protect you. Priests and pastors have died of COVID.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Yep.
The vaccine is here. Be patient, idiots.
Mm-hmm. The Reverend, they did reach out to the Reverend for comment on this, and Davey said, I'm quoting from the newspaper, he denied telling Bible study group attendees that God would protect them. I don't recall ever saying, God's going to protect you, don't worry about it, Davey said. But I live my life, frankly, that God's going to take care of me regardless. There were a lot of viruses before COVID-19 came along, and I'm sure there's more to come.
Fuck you.
He's telling a reporter, like, I didn't say that, but it's not wrong. Yeah. So what do you think he actually suggested to the Bible study members? Like, God will take care of you. Don't worry. Masks optional, something like that. You know what I mean?
Honestly, if I had to wager a guess, I would say he didn't say anything. I bet he just showed up with no mask, and people tend to do what they, people mimic others. There's a reason social pressure is so important. Nobody wants to be the only person in the room wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. So if our leader, if the guy who's guiding us comes in, takes off his mask, we're outside, I'm sure we'll be safe. There's a man spitting toward me, but that nobody's proven spit to cause COVID. Like,
no.
I honestly do not doubt that he did not say that straight up and down to his congregation. I just think that he didn't care, and so neither do they.
Yeah. I kept reading the article, and he also went, this is the Reverend again, he kept talking, because they love to talk. And here's what he also said. Contact.
People who love to talk aren't all bad, okay? Some of us are just trying to get through life.
I should point out, when I say there's an outbreak, what that means is 11 people have tested positive for COVID, 5 of whom were members of that Bible study, the other 6 being their family members or people living in their houses for the summer or whatever.
Fucking say.
That Reverend kept talking, and he said, contact tracing is a, quote, inexact science. He also said masks are all about personal freedom, and their efficacy is suspect because, quote, the science on mask wearing is very inexact.
Do you believe in science or do you not? You do not get to do that.
And then he mentioned the flu.
Mikey just caught me yelling, and he's making fun of me now. That's fair, baby. You should have made fun of me.
I will say,
reporting me, he said.
I know of Martha's Vineyard, but when I was looking up this story, I got on like a Google map frenzy, and I'm like, oh, this looks nice. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, I should visit. That sounds fun. Who do I know who's rich?
I've never, besides Florida and South Carolina, I've never been to an East Coast beach. I understand there's giant sharks that hunt people there, but that's really all I know. Is it Martha's Vineyard where Jaws takes place, baby?
It takes place in the fictional Amity Island.
In the fictional Amity Island, he says.
There you go.
Okay.
Party.
Are you done with that guy?
Sure, yes.
Genuinely is very infuriating. You do not get to pick and choose which scientists you believe. It's a scientific consensus. Do you want to talk about a 12th century archbishop?
That's all I do this year. 2021 is the year of ancient bishops.
Okay, to start, I got all of this information from a friend of mine, Dr. Sarah Ift Decker, who is a medievalologist. She's smarter than me, okay? Before I go, she helped me with this, so I want to plug her podcast. It's called you can't talk while I'm doing the podcast, Michael. Media Evil, a medieval culture podcast. I was on it a couple months ago if you need a jumping in point. But she's very smart. She's a professor. She's better than me in most ways. So she suggested that we talk about this on the show. She's a listener. Hey, Sarah. And so she sent me sort of an explainer on what's going on with Thomas Becket in current day. And then I made her explain to me who Thomas Becket was like a child.
Yes. And the reason you bring this up,
Yeah, so recently, I think I have the press release here somewhere. The White House proclaimed made a proclamation on the 850th anniversary of the martyrdom of Saint Thomas Becket.
Yep.
Do you know anything about this man who is...
I've heard of the name. I did not know his exact story.
Thomas Becket is a shockingly modern name for a 12th century saint. Okay. So I'm honestly just going to read this and we can figure it out afterwards. So Thomas Becket was a close confidant of King Henry II, who appointed him Archbishop of Canterbury in the hopes that he would do what he wanted. Instead, whether due to genuine change of heart or a desire for power or some combination, he became a hardcore supporter of church liberty. Then Henry basically intensely hinted he'd like someone to murder him, and they did. Okay. So
Becket died because he believed in the church and religion, and he really was a martyr.
He was a martyr. And I want to make one thing abundantly clear. The guy who had him murdered was a king, which is a thing we do not currently have in the United States. Talk to me this time next year. Who fucking knows? Okay.
So the guy who instituted like the Muslim ban is like religious liberty. Let's honor that.
So essentially this press release from the White House on December 28th basically is saying he is the first fighter for religious liberty. He didn't want, he was the one who kept the church under its own command instead of bowing to King Henry the second or third, whatever I said earlier. So apparently it's been 850 years since he was martyred. And so essentially that's what the White House put out this press release, tipping its hat to this centuries old martyr in a way, being like, in his name, we carry on his plan.
Cause, yeah,
exactly. So apparently it's not that fucking simple. So I've got just like two quick paragraphs I'm gonna burn through because we're gonna learn some fucking history from someone who's smarter than me and Hammett. So the problem starts, and so she's just explaining why them kind of bringing Becket under their religious freedom umbrella, the way the GOP imagines it today versus what it was like actually in his day, understanding like the nuances there. So the problem starts with a relatively simple identification of Becket as, quote, a lion of religious liberty, because Becket and other medieval clerics use of the word liberty is fundamentally not what many Americans have in mind today. The relationship between church and kingdom in medieval Europe is fundamentally a competition over power, both spiritual power and what we would consider secular power. And both the king and bishop, so the king, the emperor, whatever, the bishop or the pope or whomever, both lay claim to ultimate power and closeness to God. The king wants to exercise jurisdiction over the church and to have control over who rises to important church offices. Bishops and popes act as secular rules of territories and want to keep things that way and will seek to impose their will on kings. Both Henry II and Thomas Becket marshaled religious rhetoric for their own ends. Neither would have thought seriously about the possibility of a political entity that was not fundamentally a Christian one. Just as Becket is a poor icon for religious liberty, Henry II would be a poor icon for the separation of church and state. Both took for granted the idea that Jews, as practitioners of another faith, had a distinct and in many ways inferior legal status to Christians. Religious, quote-unquote, liberty was never about freedom of religion. It was about the institutional power accorded to those who were arguably the quintessential global bureaucrats, people associated with the church that present itself not only international but universal. The constituents of Clarendon, here described as an attempt to, quote, encroach upon the affairs of the house of God, and most importantly focus on provisions attempting to restrict extraordinary clerical privileges. Any cleric had the right to be charged and tried by a church court for any crime, including, say, murder. This essentially meant a cleric could get away with murder since a royal court might execute him. A church court would most likely at most strip him of office. The constitutions attempted to create legal loopholes that would allow clerics to face the same punishment for criminal behavior as the English laity. Finally, Becket has nothing to do with Magna Carta, which they talk about at length in this proclamation, which, as it happens, was annulled by the Pope.
So in short, like, the guy they're marking as this martyr for religious freedom, he doesn't actually care about religious freedom. It's mostly just let me have power. You won't let me have power. You're going to murder me for that.
She summed it up nicely, I think. I would put money on the fact that whoever is involved in this thinks or wants to think that the Magna Carta is basically the U.S. Constitution. It is not, as opposed to a document designed by and for elites. But that's a story from another time.
Nice. I want to bring up one other. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I just sort of wanted to review it because when I read out loud, sometimes I don't comprehend. So essentially, this is like if Trump had something to do with putting no, this is a terrible metaphor, but it's essentially the king wanted to put his buddy in power. So the king could rule both his kingdom and the religious, and church. But as soon as Becket rose to that, either he had a change of heart and realized what the king was asking him was not okay in whatever moral sense he's saying, or he was like, hey, power fucking owns bones. Fuck you, king. Now I'm God. I don't think he said that. That's not a direct quote. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. And just like the reason I read that whole thing in whole is it's such a good example of how we as a culture, specifically the religious right, use these little talking points or icon. You know, this guy was a saint. He was sainted by whomever. He was a martyr. And they talk about them in ways that they want to say, see, he's just like us. But really, they're whitewashing who this guy was. I mean, whether or not he was technically a martyr either way, but he wasn't a champion of religious freedom. He was a champion of Thomas Becket freedom. Right. So the fact
it's not ironic that there is actually a right-wing legal group called the Becket Fund, and just like all right-wing religious legal groups, they're not really interested in protecting Jews and Muslims and atheists. It's just a Catholic or right-wing Christian group.
It's just a very good example of them pulling a name out of a hat, applying shading to it so it feels like what we're going through today. But if you take a step back, it's not the same. It's not even similar.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I will promise you anything. Donald Trump has no idea who Becket is or was.
No. Do not get it twisted. He has never heard of it. He doesn't even know what Canterbury is. He hasn't read any of the tales.
I will say one of the things in his proclamation that stood out, because most of it, like I said, someone else wrote it. He just put his name on it, whatever. That's not new. That happens with other people too. But one thing that was in this proclamation, I want to quote it, which was at the very end of this document. A society without religion cannot prosper. A nation without faith cannot endure, because justice, goodness, and peace cannot prevail without the grace of God. That's not anything Becket said. That's what Trump is saying in his proclamation.
I'm just doing a quick Google search. Has Sweden collapsed?
Sweden has not collapsed. Many European countries are doing all right. But the idea that our government is actually putting out a proclamation saying we need religion, you can't do a religious liberty proclamation and say, well, screw you, atheist. Yeah.
The irony is delicious. It's truly just a bunch of people who, do they know when they say shit like this? When they say,
they don't listen to themselves. It's hard enough for us to do it. They definitely don't do it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the thing that I want to figure out before I die. I know I'm talking a lot about mortality, but I need to know if these people are liars and power hungry and saying whatever they think they need to say to, lull the masses, or if they're genuine religious buffoons.
Yeah, and it gotta be what the overlap is. Some of these people, I heard someone saying Josh Hawley, the senator, was saying nope, I'm going to protest the electoral thing. But someone said that's weird. Some Republican anonymous told a reporter, it's weird coming from Hawley because I thought he was smarter than that and not a buffoon like Louis Gohmert or something. It's you all were dumb enough to think Josh Hawley was smart. Like, what is wrong with you?
I mean, don't we kind of sift them into two different piles, like the dangerous idiots and the dangerous guys who kind of know what they're doing and can pull the strings? Like, Trump is dangerous idiot. He's been fucking president for 4 years and he does not know how government works.
Like, Mitt Romney will vote 90% or whatever of the time with whatever Trump wants, and then every now and then he'll say something sensible, like, oh, we lost the election, we're not going to overturn it. You know what? Overturning the election is undemocratic. And everyone's like, thank you, Mitt Romney. What a brave thing to say that every other Democrat said also. But yeah, he gets credit for that. And but Josh Hawley is making no secret of the fact that he's just as bad as everybody else. Anyway, hey, let me give a shout out to our new sponsor. And they'll be around for a little while. Here's the backstory of this. I'm fortunate enough to know the person I'm talking about here. Elle had a small problem. Growing up in a secular household, but in a community dominated by one religion, Elle was one of the few kids in her third grade class who was not religious. When she talked to friends and classmates, she found that many of them had a hard time imagining someone who didn't go to church or pray. Some others wondered how Elle could know right from wrong without religious leaders or sacred books telling her how to do it. The conversations Elle found herself having at that age were not judgmental or contentious, but the result of honest curiosity. After school, Elle would ask her dad to help her explain what she believed and how she felt in a way that would make sense to the other kids at school. And from their conversations came ideas that became a book that's called Elle the Humanist. It's a clearly expressed introduction to humanism for young readers. I have read the book. I know the family. It's a nice introduction to humanism, written by someone of that age, but in a way that actually is easy to read and follow if you're that age. You can order the book at ellethehumanist.com. That's ELLE, ellethehumanist.com. And if you either use the link that is in our show notes to go there, or you purchase the book on that website and use the discount code FriendlyAtheist, one word, all lowercase, you will get 10% off. Check it out. It's a nice book. They're good people.
It sounds like a nice gift.
Yes, it really is. Let me talk about this lawsuit that just ended in Pennsylvania, because this is like 8 years running, and it just ended this week. And I'm going to try to shorten 8 years of a lawsuit into a very brief time period here, but here's basically what happened. In Pennsylvania, there is a local transit system in the county of Lackawanna. So it's the county of Lackawanna transit system, Colts. Okay, so Colts, they have buses and things like that, and you can purchase ads on those buses. And in 2012, an atheist named Justin Vacula and the Northeastern Pennsylvania Free Thought Society, which he was helping to run, I believe, they wanted to put up an ad. 2012 was a time when you saw those atheist billboards everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So he's like, well, we want to put up an advertisement on the local bus system too, because that is perfect for our group. Mm-hmm. But they also knew that a lot of ads that were going up around that time, they got in not a controversy he was looking for, because they would get the company would just say, nope, too offensive. You can't have that up there. So he was thinking, what's the least offensive ad I could put up that advertises my group? So what they came up with was a bus ad that says atheists, period. And then off to the side, there were two links, one for the Northeastern Pennsylvania Free Thought Society, NEPAfreethought.org, and American Atheists, atheist.org. So atheists, big letters, and then in smaller print, the two names of the groups and their URLs.
Okay,
Colts,
I remember this.
Yeah, Colts rejected that ad. They said it was too controversial.
So controversial.
And they tried to appeal the decision. They tried to talk, but the Colts wouldn't budge. So then they submitted a new ad. It said atheists. This time it did not have American Atheists and their URL. It just had the local group's name and URL. That was rejected. And then it got even weirder, because Colts, the people running it, passed a new policy. And this is what it said: we will not accept ads that promote the existence or non-existence of a supreme being or deity or other religious beliefs. We want to be neutral on religious issues.
Wait, when did this happen?
This was like 2012-ish.
Okay, because I totally remember this, but...
Yeah. So anyway, they changed this new thing that you cannot promote or oppose God on their ads, which is weird because they were allowing like political ads, kind of.
Of course.
So they submitted a new ad. The Atheist submitted a brand new one. This one just said, forget atheists, NEPA Free Thought Society, Northeastern Pennsylvania Free Thought Society. With the link at the bottom. No scary A word. And Colt said, fine, we'll take that one. Which basically means the ad saying atheists were bad. But free thought was okay. Mind you, the ad that said atheist did not say be an atheist or God doesn't exist. It was the word atheist. Yeah, it said atheists. That was bad. This one that says free thought is fine. So what the hell is going on? I don't know. But eventually they filed a lawsuit, the atheists did, and they said, the cult's people are running ads. Think about this. This is what they have said yes to while they were saying no to us. A local Catholic church, a local Lutheran church, a Christian women's group, a school board candidate, meaning political ads, a local beer distributor, which arguably is maybe controversial, and also an online blog that linked to anti-Semitic websites and Holocaust denial websites. Like, so controversial stuff.
Whoa.
So basically,
you're that one under the water, bud.
So basically, the lawsuit said, you're saying no to us because we're controversial or because it's about religion, but you are totally accepting controversial ads and ones about religion. So what the hell gives? So this is what the lawsuit was about. And again, what basically happened is that a judge at first in 2018 said, you know what? They had every right to reject your ad. Atheists lose.
Yeah.
And they said they're allowed to restrict their ads on stuff as long as it's neutral and reasonable, even though it wasn't, because they had examples. They appealed the decision. The appeals court overturned it. They said, no, you can't say no to the atheist ad. It was a 2-1 ruling. And the weirdest thing about that is the majority opinion, one of the two judges who voted to overrule that decision, is a guy named Thomas Hardiman, who was always on Trump's short lists for the Supreme Court. Like, had a guy died and not Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Thomas Hardiman could be on the Supreme Court right now. So this is a very Trumpist judge who said, yeah, they were discriminating based on viewpoint. And here's the thing. They had a choice. The cults people had a choice. Do we want to fight this even higher? We're probably going to lose. Right. They decided, nope, we're not going to push it. We'll take the loss and just end it. And that means they now got to pay up. And what we found out this week is a judge said, all right, well, Colts has to pay $275,000 to the atheist group's attorneys, which is the ACLU of Pennsylvania and whoever they outsourced it to. That's what happened this week. I asked Justin what he thought about all this. He was pretty straightforward about it, that someone is an atheist or wants to advertise an atheist group should not be controversial. The word atheist is not an attack on religion, as Colt's solicitor claims. So, I mean, it's the right decision. And even though the money, I will say the ACLU of Pennsylvania actually said, you owe us a lot more than this for the 8 years we put into this case.
Sure.
Their bill was much higher. It was lowered to $275,000, but that is ultimately the compromise number, but it means this case is finally done. So amazing that the word atheist is the thing that was like, what? No, this is going to ruffle feathers everywhere.
Well, the thing that fucking sucks is that I'm totally pro-transit, so it sucks. It's the exact same thing that happens in schools all the time.
Like you're getting money out of the school system or the transit system. I will say, I believe, as far as I could tell, the $275,000 is not, I was trying to get a straight answer on this. I could not find it at the time. I think they're insurers, or like, it's not the taxpayers that are on the hook necessarily.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Maybe. I could be wrong there. But usually when a school district is sued over something involving church-state separation, it's their insurance companies that pay out the money. It's not like kids can't get books because of those issues. With the Colts thing, I can't tell if it's the Colts system or like a general fund that has to pay this out. But whatever, if they didn't want to lose that money, this is their damn fault. And the people of Pennsylvania should remember that if they get to vote on who's representing them or who's running these things, because that all goes back to good governance. And if they have dumb people running the show saying, nope, can't say yes to that ad, like.
But presumably, if like a school or whatever, if the insurance covers it, then their premiums are going to be higher, right? Like, it's not like there's no hurt to the people.
Which again, you need a school board that's not going to make stupid decisions, and a school board that has an attorney that's not going to tell them to take stupid decisions.
Exactly. And I hate being this person. I hate being on this side of like, just stop arguing with us or we're going to cost you a ton of money. But ultimately,
I will say every atheist group, when they reach out to those school boards, because they're on the same side as you are, we don't want to take money from you. This is not about us trying to bankrupt you. This is not about us trying to get rich off of this. Right. They say very clearly, the law is on our side. Here's why we know that. What you are doing is against the law. We're telling you why that is. We don't want to file a lawsuit over this, so we are asking you nicely, stop it. Tell us you are going to stop. And sometimes, more often than not, the school boards respond and say, we've looked into this, we're investigating it, we have stopped it. So we have done the thing you wanted us to do, and that's the end of it. But if they choose not to, because for whatever reason they don't believe what the letter says, like, all right, well, you're giving us no choice here because we're fighting on principle here. And apparently you don't care about the kids. You care more about pushing faith on people. So you know what? If that's what it takes for you to learn the lesson, we tried giving you the nice way out. It's not like they file a lawsuit first and then have these discussions. Sure. They send warnings ahead of time. In the case of Justin and the Colts issue, they said, you are making a mistake here. Don't make a mistake. Our board is fine. Like, we have lawyers too. We know how this works. Right. And the cult system said, nope, saying no to you. So I want to talk about something a little more lighthearted. I actually have a good news story here.
What? Weird.
I know. It is weird.
Happy 2021.
I know. In Idaho, where they have very relatively few COVID restrictions, and it's not good, there is a local chapter of the Satanic Temple that is hosting a charity drive that a few different affiliates have done before. It's called Menstruating with Satan. And they're collecting donations of personal hygiene products for people who can't afford it.
Oh, that's nice.
It's awesome. You can go to their Amazon list and you can purchase whatever you can for them, and they'll donate it to a group called the Boise Period Project that helps people who need the item. So great. That's awesome. Cool. So because it's pandemic season, yes, you can purchase stuff on Amazon. It'll get sent to... I mean, there'll be another one soon, I'm sure. But you can purchase the stuff from a distance, and that's great. They also say for certain products, hey, if you want to drop it off at a local drop box, you can just do that. And we're trying to make it easy for you to help out if you want to help out.
Sure.
So the people running the charity went to a local pub called Crown and Thistle that is open, and they have people coming in because, again, Idaho in COVID. But the Crown and Thistle people said, yeah, sure, leave a box here. That sounds like a good cause. We'll help out. Like, all you need from us is, do you want to put the box here so people can donate? Yeah, fine. So there was a local Facebook group for local foodies, the people who like different restaurants and want to talk about the restaurants in the area and all that. That's fine. But one of the people who posted on that website said, this is in the restaurant Crown and Thistle. It's a picture of the box. Are you kidding me? I guess we knew they were staunch demon rats. I guess it just goes to show you never know. They can keep their evil, wicked ways. We'll never spend a cent there. Shocked by this evil that is destroying this town, was instantly blocked, saying, I think it's liberal asshats that own it, allow it. So I know where North Idaho foodies group's priorities lay also now. Bye-bye, middle finger emoji.
Wow. Wow. Hold on.
I will say,
for me to deal with right now.
I had so much fun reading that. There were more comments, I should say. There was another one who said, that's like the KKK putting a Toys for Tots box in a restaurant, which, you know what? they're not doing that. I'm guessing KKK isn't big on charity.
Yeah.
Someone else said this pub would never receive any of my family's business. And so this is what's going on.
A traditional family establishment.
I know. This is where Christians go to chill out, the pub. And now here's the good news. This is why it's a good news story. The co-owner of the pub, when the local news affiliate asked the pub about this, the backlash, here's what the pub's owner, Ben Drake, said. As we have told many people since before we even opened, the pub is a safe, neutral place for beer, food, and the betterment of our community. A local group asked if we would be willing to put a bin out for the collection of necessary feminine products for women in need in shelters and
period products, not feminine products. Continue.
That's his words, not mine.
Yeah,
in shelters and abusive situations for such a worthy cause. Of course, we said yes. We would do the same for any worthy cause presented by our area. So they kept the box, and
That's
they're like,
great.
we don't care what the Christians complain about here, which, by the way, they're not a group that worships Satan. I feel like that's obvious to listeners, but like,
people
they're freaking out over nothing because they couldn't be bothered to look up anything here.
I mean, it's not great that the happiest story you've told me is that somebody did not steal period products from people in need. Like, that's not the best.
I was happy that the pub owner who doesn't know about the satanic group was like, what's wrong with it? It's fine. They're doing a good thing. If you did a good thing, I would help you.
Right.
Like, yes, good. That's the right answer. I don't need you to like promote the satanic group. I need you to just be like, it's a nice thing they're doing. Let me help them. I have one last story for you here, which is a much more serious story, but it happened this week. Arizona had a law permitting victims of child sexual abuse to file lawsuits against their abusers. A lot of states did this recently where they said, in the past, if you wanted to file a lawsuit against your abuser, you had to do it within a certain amount of time. But a lot of states recently said, we're going to open up the statute. We're going to get rid of the statute of limitations temporarily and open up a window if you want to file a lawsuit, because a lot of stuff has changed in the past 30 years regarding these issues. A lot more people are willing to speak up and fight back and all that. Arizona is one of those.
The temporarily thing is a little troubling, but continue.
Yeah, they kind of want to make it so like we don't want to shut out anyone who has a legit claim, but also there's a statute of limitations for a reason.
We don't want all kids to be able to talk about their abuse, just the ones who have been abused recently, Emmett.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to get rid of the statute of limitations, that's fine. But they basically said, we have a window that even if your case was 30 years ago and you weren't able to file a lawsuit, you can do it if you do it within this year. And then we're going to like go back to the rules or whatever. Arizona's law, that window of opportunity closed on December 31st.
Okay.
So like it was get your lawsuits in if you want to, because the clock is expiring. And what happened is that former Boy Scouts, 7 of them, filed seven separate lawsuits against the Mormon Church.
Oh, dang.
Because the Mormon Church was strongly linked up with the Boy Scouts of America. It was like their biggest single group. If you were part of the Boy Scouts, you probably were part of Mormon Boy Scouts, depending on where you live. And the 7 lawsuits, the Boy Scouts say, our religious leaders covered up sex crimes despite being fully aware of what was happening. They said public records show members of church-sponsored Boy Scouts troops who were abused would tell church bishops about what they had happened. The lawsuits say the bishops would tell the victims to keep quiet so the church could investigate the matter, and then they never did or never did anything about it. Meanwhile, the troop leaders and the people accused would be allowed to continue in their roles or assigned to another troop. And so 7 different victims are asking for a jury to look into this. They said the crimes happened between 1972 and 2009. And the Mormon Church, of course, says, nope, none of this happened. But these lawsuits have been filed. I should say in 2018, the Mormon Church said, we want nothing to do with the Boy Scouts of America because they're now allowing gay scouts in and gay scout leaders. So we want out. And when the Mormon Church left and took 400,000 troops with them, or members, I should say, with them, that basically sank the Boy Scouts who have since filed for bankruptcy. So like the Mormon Church was integral to the Boy Scouts' success and their continued existence, but the Boy Scouts being more inclusive made the Mormon Church say we want nothing to do with you.
Right.
And now you have former Boy Scouts saying, oh, well, the Mormon Church wasn't the good, like they weren't the good ones in that organization.
You believe it?
Yeah. So those lawsuits are filed. We'll see what happens with them, but there you go. So,
well, cool.
That story never seems to end.
So last night on New Year's, Mikey and I watched, what was it called? I texted to you. It's something about 2020. Goodbye 2020.
Oh, goodbye to 2021 or something. 2020. Yeah, the Netflix thing.
Death to 2020. I knew it was goodbye. And I was like, oh, weird, because we just did our year in review, because they basically did the same thing, but like with a budget and actors and writers and a voiceover artist and things like that, and time and, payment. But anyway, and so it was like, oh, yeah, like these are all things I talk about. I realized I didn't talk about Rudy Giuliani at all in our year in review podcast, and that was an egregious oversight on my part. So I'd like to apologize to our listeners. It's just,
we also left out
vision about.
I know we also left out James Randi, who we had talked about on the show like weeks prior, but in terms of the retrospective, but there's so much happening.
And how I do it is it's not like I go back and re-listen to our episodes. I just like go through like headlines of the month in this month or whatever, because I'm not, I dedicated probably 5 hours to this. Like I'm not going to do days of research. And I realized I didn't talk about Rudy Giuliani at all. I realized I didn't talk about James Randi at all. It was wanting for sure, but you should, if you want to see what we did, but better and funnier and more interesting, you should watch Death to 2020. They do a really good job of having like faux talking heads. So they have like Hugh Grant as an old college professor who like fictional people talking about real shit. It's quite funny. I would recommend it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Very good. Well, I hope everyone had a good New Year, and thank you as always for listening to us.
Yep. I have you can leave a 5-star review on iTunes, which I have queued up, Hammett. You don't even
look at you.
It's called Coffee and You, which sounds like a really cool, like 1998 acoustic album. Coffee and You. It's by Dice 35. Saturday mornings when I wake and I enjoy my coffee with the latest friendly. Saturday mornings are when I wake and I enjoy my coffee with the latest friendly atheist. Thank you all for your intellectual content. Hammett, they think we're intellectual.
Aww.
So nice. You can always go on iTunes. We're nearing 1,000 reviews, which is pretty exciting. By nearing, I mean we just passed 900. I don't know if that's how math works.
Yeah.
Do you have any resolutions this year, bud?
No. I'm fine.
People tune into the banter, you dumb motherfucker. What do you think we're doing here?
I'm surviving. I'll try to keep doing that. What are you doing? Well,
since I have no work currently, and I'm crossing my fingers on unemployment coming through, who the fuck knows what's going to happen there? I'm fine for a couple months, but who the fuck knows? I am going to rededicate myself to working on my novel, which is like it's outlined, and I probably have 2 chapters like written. But I am going to,
National Novel Writing Month.
But in January, because I started it in November and didn't what you traditionally would call finish it. I got a foothold. I have some shit going on. So yeah, that's my only resolution.
Which means you can all hold her to it.
That's honestly why I'm bringing it up. Because like if people know about it, maybe I will get pew. Because I already told Mikey, like, can you? Because he bought me this. Ironically, Christmas in 2019, he bought me a writing program, a Scrivener, I think it's called.
Oh yeah, Scrivener is awesome.
Yeah, and so he bought it for me as a present to be like, here you go. And he bought me like a deck of cards that gives you like ideas if you're running.
Yeah.
Like he gave me all of this support, and then I didn't write a lot for a while, and then I did again, and I was like, you can like give me shit about not doing that might motivate me. He's like, I don't want to though, Jess. I want you to write when you want to, so I need you nerds to keep me honest.
Yes.
Anyway,
I like it.
Okay.
Hey, where do we find you?
Oh, yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Blueberry, BLUEBURIE. You can also go to Bitches Get Stitched Done at Etsy. Not at Etsy, but on Etsy. My store is Bitches Get Stitched Done if you want custom work. I still don't have any like listings up. I'm really only doing custom orders right now for a little extra income. So if you want one of those, just shoot me a message. There should be a button somewhere. I think it's hard to find. So just shoot me a message. Let me know what you want. I've got a canned response I'll send you with some details. But yeah, I'd be happy to start making some shit for some people.
Excellent.
My shit starts at $50. I feel like I want to say that because I feel like people reach out and I'm like, it starts at $50 and I just never hear from them again. Like, it's a very time consuming hobby. So
they're very good. I'm just telling you, I've seen them. I feel like I have one. They're good. They're worth it if you're into the cross stitching stuff.
I have not cross stitched anything I would say you're probably my only friend who does not have like at least 4
okay.
in their house.
My kids would have ripped it up by now, but I have seen them and they're very good.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hemant, where can we find you?
I am at Hemant Meta. Go to friendlyatheist.com, support the show, patreon.com/friendlyatheist podcast. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Bye everybody.